Okay, long story short, it's not quite as bad as a lot of people were thinking. It's not quite as cringy as the marketing and Brie I don't care about the opinions of white dudes Larson made it sound. It is, however, not a great movie, and it's certainly one of the weakest installments in the MCU, if not the weakest. I'll start with the good stuff. There's a tribute to Stan Lee at the start of the movie that was really cool. It was sweet and classy, and I applauded at this. It was great. Most of the cast is solid, most of it being the thing to remember. The film is really buoyed by the supporting cast, actually. Samuel L. Jackson is the man, that de-aging technology is damn impressive, and I really bought that this was a young Nick Fury. He's less jaded, less experienced, but put a few years on him and he still feels like the guy who walked out of the shadows in the post-credits scene of the first Iron Man movie. Lashana Lynch's role is kind of underwritten, and she's not in the movie as much as you might think, but she makes the most of what they give her. I liked her performance, and I thought she did a lot with what could have been a pretty forgettable part. Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, also very good. I was pleasantly surprised with the amount of personality and humanity that he was able to inject into this character, and he's definitely one of the highlights, even though the Skrulls themselves do end up being nerfed pretty badly. And Goose the Cat is pretty cool too. So yeah, the supporting cast is good. But did you notice that I neglected to mention somebody? Somebody who has kind of a big role in this movie? Just checking. On the technical side, the CGI is fine, the action scenes are passable, there's nothing here that's gonna blow your hair back in that department like if the Russo brothers were directing, but for the most part I found the action to be competent and satisfactory if a little uninspired. So that's what I liked. And now let's move over to the bad stuff, because I think that's what most people are gonna be curious about. One of the failures of the movie is how it handles the Kree-Skrull War. That ends up being more of a backdrop than a main plot point, which not only feels like a big missed opportunity, but also gets kinda confusing. The script really could have used a rewrite to clarify some things about that, because the movie just drops you right in the middle of the Kree-Skrull War without even bothering to explain what the Kree or the Skrulls' deal is. Non-comic fans are not gonna know who the Skrulls are, and unless they watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., their only exposure to the Kree would have been Ronan the Accuser in Guardians of the Galaxy, which didn't tell us much about those guys either. About 15 minutes in, I said to myself, man, if I was a non-comic reader, I would be so lost right now. Even by the end of the film, I still wasn't sure why these two races were at war with each other in the first place. So that part felt very underdeveloped and could have been fleshed out a lot more. Also, there's a real lack of humor. Outside of a few moments with Goose the Cat, there are very few laughs to be had here. And seeing as how Avengers Infinity War was able to tell a very dark story while being incredibly funny at the same time, there's no excuse for that. But the real weak link in all of this is Captain Marvel herself and the actress playing her. Unfortunately, this was not a case of the trailers just using bad takes. Yes, the trailers did the movie no favors, but they weren't being misleading either. I'll give Brie Larson this much, she does pretty well with the action scenes. She's got enough physicality that I never thought she looked out of place or unconvincing when she was fighting people. I also like the scenes with her and Sam Jackson, mainly because Sam Jackson is so damn good and carries every scene he's in, but when she has him to bounce off of, Larson seems to come alive a bit and more of that personality comes out. But when she doesn't have him as a scene partner, she really dials it back, and I kept waiting for Carol Danvers to show some genuine charisma or likability or general screen presence even, and it just never happens. Her whole performance is very muted and subdued. She never emotes that much at all. Even in the scene where Carol finds out that her entire life as a Kree soldier was a lie, that she was used and manipulated by people she trusted for years and all this other stuff, she doesn't really get that upset. This should have been a powerful moment, with her totally breaking down, feeling devastated and hitting her lowest point, but instead she's just stoic and wooden and it falls completely flat. And that's her throughout the whole movie pretty much. Larson just refuses to go to any kind of raw, emotional place with this character, and the result is that the character never feels humanized or relatable at all. Brie Larson is a good actress, but she just feels miscast here and there's no getting around it. And I think the movie itself is at fault for this too, because it seems to go out of its way to avoid ever making Carol look vulnerable, emotionally or physically, and this just comes down to bad writing. I won't say she's 100% Mary Sue because she does screw up once or twice, but there's definitely a lot of Rey qualities in this character where she's awesome at everything, she doesn't have to struggle or work hard to earn her skills or abilities. Even in scenes where she should be in real dire straits, she always gets herself out of trouble quite easily. You never once get the sense that she's in any real danger or that she's not in control of the situation she's in, and that's before she levels up to her full power. Later it gets even worse. By the end of the film, Captain Marvel has become so powerful that it actually gets boring because it's obvious that none of the villains stand a snowball's chance in hell against her, so any tension or drama the movie might have had completely evaporates. Remember the scene in the first Iron Man movie when Obadiah Stane pulls the arc reactor out of Tony's chest and Tony has to drag himself down to the basement to get the replacement arc reactor, but he's struggling so much because his heart is failing and he's running out of time and he's trying to force himself to stay conscious, and you're like, oh man, Tony's up shit creek right now, because he looks so vulnerable and you're not sure if he can make it. There's a palpable sense of dread in that scene that is completely absent in Captain Marvel. There's nothing like that in this movie. Everything comes easily to her, minus a few really contrived flashbacks that are really just there to show how persecuted she is because she's a woman. She never really has her back against the wall, so you don't feel any reason to get behind her or root for her to succeed. The filmmakers just never bothered to give Carol Danvers any kind of mountain to climb or genuine struggle to overcome, and I really think that's because of the politics. The feminist agenda in and around this movie just will not allow Captain Marvel to be vulnerable, even though that makes a compelling character and a better story. But they won't have it because she's a woman, and the woman has to be awesome all the time because anything less is sexist according to these people. And that brings me to the identity politics. Brie Larson has said that this movie is about feminism. And it is. More specifically, toxic feminism. The kind that has a real disdain for the same demographic whose opinions Brie Larson has said she doesn't care about. They don't go as overboard with it as Ghostbusters 2016 did, but it's very obvious what their intentions were here. With the exception of young Coulson, every single white male character who does anything in this movie is either untrustworthy or a total asshole. And yes, I said every white male character. Which means that, spoiler alert, this tweet is pretty depressing in retrospect. Holy shit, you guys. I was half joking when I tweeted that, but it's a sign that your movie has gotten too political when the biggest plot twist in the story can be predicted via sarcasm. God damn it, they just couldn't resist. And sadly, after everything that's happened since that first trailer came out, after all the politics and controversy surrounding this movie, I'm not even a little surprised. And as for how it ties into Avengers Endgame, well, if that's your only reason to see the movie, you can probably skip this one. They don't address the Avengers connection until the post-credits scene, and there's really not much to it. She was in space, now she's back on Earth, that's all you need to know. If you don't see Captain Marvel, you can go into Avengers Endgame and not feel like you missed anything. Captain Marvel is not a horrible movie, but it's not a great or terribly interesting one either. The very capable supporting cast does an admirable job, but the film is dragged down by some poor storytelling choices, a wooden lead actress who is pretty clearly miscast, and identity politics that would rather the film's heroine just be awesome all the time than be an actual compelling character that you can sympathize with and relate to. The ill-conceived marketing campaign and divisive comments made by Brie Larson didn't help matters any, but I went in with low expectations and I got what I expected. Unfortunately, Marvel Studios' first female-led film could have been a lot better. If you're looking for a big action movie with a female lead who's both a good hero and a good character, go see Alita: Battle Angel. It's not perfect either, but it's a much better movie than this one. Sound off on Captain Marvel down in the comments below. And while you're here, be sure to like, share, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, and follow me on Twitter using the link in the description box so you'll always be notified when new videos get uploaded. I talk movies, TV, comics, trailers, and more, so if you like what you see here, stay tuned, and I'll be back real soon with the next one. Until then, over, out.